The desert, endless sand, scorching days, and freezing nights. People think it's empty, lifeless, but they don't know what really hides out there. When the sun sets and the wind starts to howl, shadows move where no living thing should be. These are not just tales. They are true accounts of people who walked into the desert and never came back the same. Tonight, you'll hear 3 terrifying, true desert horror stories, each one darker and stranger than the last. Stories that will make you question if the desert is truly barren, or if it's alive, watching you, waiting. So turn off the lights, put on your headphones, and remember, in the desert, you can scream all you want, but no one will hear you. Story 1, The Vanishing Campfire. It was the summer of 2018 when Aaron, an experienced solo camper, decided to cross a section of the Mojave Desert on foot. He'd done plenty of hiking before, but this trip was different. He wanted isolation. No tour groups, no marked trails, no safety nets. Just him, a backpack, and the desert stretching endlessly in every direction. The first day went smoothly. The sun was brutal, but he'd planned his route to rest under small rock overhangs during the hottest hours. As the evening approached, the temperature dropped sharply. He set up camp on a flat stretch of sand, far from any road or sign of human life. The silence was so deep that even his own breathing sounded unnaturally loud. That night, as Aaron sat by a small campfire, he saw something strange in the distance. Another flicker of orange light. At first, he thought it might be another camper, but the light wasn't steady. It would flare up for a few seconds, then vanish, only to reappear in a completely different spot minutes later. The movements didn't make sense. No human could move a fire that quickly. Curious, he decided to investigate, keeping his flashlight off to preserve his night vision. He walked for about 10 minutes toward the light, but the closer he got, the dimmer it became, as if it were pulling away from him. When he finally stopped, there was nothing, just cold sand beneath his boots and the faint hiss of wind. Confused and a little uneasy, Aaron turned back toward his campsite. That's when his stomach dropped. His campfire, the one he'd left burning, was gone. Not just out, but gone. There were no embers, no ashes, no sign it had ever been there. His tent, his pack, even his footprints in the sand had vanished. It was as if the desert had swallowed them whole. Panic surged through him. He spun in circles, trying to orient himself, but the landscape looked different. Dunes where there had been flat ground, a ridge that hadn't been there before. The night air seemed colder now, biting into his skin. Then he heard it, a low, rhythmic sound behind him, like something dragging itself across the sand. He turned, nothing. He started walking faster, then running, the sound always just a few steps behind. His flashlight flickered, then died completely. When he finally stopped, out of breath, the dragging sound stopped too. The silence was crushing, and then out of the corner of his eye, he saw it, a single orange glow, like the ember of a dying fire, floating in the darkness, slowly drifting toward him. Aaron doesn't remember much after that. He claims he woke up at dawn, lying on bare sand with no gear, no water, and no memory of how he'd survived the freezing night. Search teams never found his belongings. And to this day, he says the desert didn't just take his things. It watched him, followed him, and let him go. Story 2, Room 6. In 2009, Emily was driving through rural Montana on her way to visit family. It was late, well past midnight, when she realized she was too tired to keep going. The only light she saw for miles came from an old roadside motel. The kind with peeling paint, buzzing neon signs, and a parking lot with more cracks than pavement. Inside, the front desk was empty. After ringing the bell twice, a man finally appeared from a back room. His skin was pale, almost gray, and his smile didn't quite reach his eyes. He didn't ask for ID or a payment method, just handed her a heavy brass key with a number 6 engraved on it. The hallway smelled like mildew, and the carpet was damp under her shoes. Room 6 was at the very end. Inside, the air was freezing despite the heater being on. The wallpaper was peeling, and there was a single bed with thin, faded sheets. Exhausted, Emily locked the door, set her bag down, and crawled into bed fully dressed. Around 3 a.m., she woke to a faint tapping sound. At first, she thought it was coming from the window, but it was too rhythmic. 3 slow taps, pause, then 3 more. It was coming from the closet. She sat up, her heart pounding, and told herself it was just the building settling. But then she heard it again, louder this time. She reached for her phone, only to find it dead, though she charged it before sleeping. The tapping stopped, and in the silence that followed, a whisper slid through the dark. Not supposed to be here. Emily froze. The voice was raspy, almost like it was coming from inside the walls. She grabbed her bag, fumbling for the door, but the lock wouldn't turn. Her hands shook violently as she tried again and again. Then, from the corner of her eye, she saw the closet door slowly creak open. The darkness inside seemed deeper than it should have been, swallowing the dim light from a hallway bulb outside. A pale hand, long, bony fingers, reached out and gripped the doorframe. Emily doesn't remember unlocking the door, only that she suddenly found herself in her car, engine running, speeding down the empty highway. When she looked back in the rearview mirror, the motel was gone. Not just dark, gone. Years later, when she told her story online, several people claimed they'd tried to find the motel too, but no one could find any record of it ever existing. Story 3, The Camp in the Dunes. In the summer of 2015, 3 friends, Josh, Mateo, and Claire, decided to spend a weekend camping in the desert dunes of southern Nevada. They were experienced hikers, but the idea this time was to go completely off the beaten path, far from any official campsite, to enjoy the isolation and the star-filled sky. The first night was perfect. The moon lit the dunes with a silver glow, and the only sounds were the softness of the wind and the occasional crack of cooling sand. They stayed up late, telling ghost stories by the fire until sleep finally claimed them. But sometime after midnight, Claire woke to a strange sound, like footsteps crunching in the sand. She thought maybe Josh or Mateo had gotten up to use the bathroom, but when she peeked out her tent, both of them were inside their sleeping bags. The footsteps stopped, replaced by a slow, dragging noise. She held her breath, straining to hear. Then came a voice, low and dry, like wind scraping over stone. "Leave." She shook Josh awake, but when they stepped outside, the desert was empty. No footprints, no movement, just the endless dunes stretching under the moonlight. The next day, they laughed it off as a dream, but as night fell again, the atmosphere shifted. The wind was still, the air heavy. Around 2 a.m., the dragging sound returned, this time closer. Josh shined his flashlight toward the sound, and the beam caught something moving behind a dune, a figure, impossibly tall, its limbs too long, its head tilted unnaturally to the side. The light hit its face, and all 3 froze. There were no eyes, just smooth skin where they should have been. The figure turned and began moving toward them, each step impossibly slow, but somehow closing the distance too fast. Panic erupted. They grabbed their gear, abandoning most of it, and ran in the dark. For hours they stumbled through the dunes, until finally, the faint glow of a highway came into view. When they reached it, out of breath and shaking, they turned back. The desert behind them was empty again, silent, as if nothing had ever been there. Later, when Josh checked his phone, he found a single photo in his gallery that none of them remembered taking. It was completely black, except for 2 pale, eyeless faces faintly visible in the darkness.